150 of you. So I believe you all have been having a nice time for these 3 days, right? So we met last afternoon as well. So you know me, perhaps. I'm Deepchanti Lekamge, a senior lecturer attached to the Department of Natural Resources of your faculty, whereas I've been meeting you for the last 2 days also. And I come from the environmental sciences background. Plus, since I asked Pavani that there is no need to introduce me to you all, that I'll do it myself, I've been an alumni of the same faculty and graduated with environmental sciences and natural resources degree. And then I completed my master's in the same university from Sabaragam University of Sri Lanka, and then my doctor's in Japan. So that was a very brief sort of a background related to my academic career, whereas I've been serving the university for more than 12, 13 years for now. So I do have a kind of an understanding about all sorts of backgrounds and scopes of you all coming from all these 4 departments. And we really feel so lucky. And it is a blessing for you all that you get to interact with students, with your members, with peers from 4 different backgrounds. Natural resources, diverse blend. So make sure that once you are here, once you are on campus, make sure that you build up your harmony among all these colleagues. And it's really nice. Again, I would say, make sure that you network among yourselves. You can do wonders. With all these backgrounds coming in together, you can do many things, right? So it's a blessing that you would find specifically here in the Faculty of Applied Sciences. Plus, since we are a faculty that hosts a department called Department of Natural Resources, we do have a responsibility to be nature friendly, to be environmentally friendly, and to be responsible towards sustainable consumption as consumers, as consumption, in terms of consumption, right? Every individual of us is a consumer. Starting from the morning where you would use your toothbrush, the toothpaste, or the glass of milk, until you go to bed, think of how many things would you use and utilize. And what amount of energy would you be consuming? What amount of water would you be consuming throughout the day just in your day-to-day life? So we are all consumers, and we do have a role to play since we have to become responsible in consumption and sustainable in consumption. So even though the topic of the talk goes as energy, water, and waste management, I don't think that I need to talk right about those very rigid topics. So I just changed the title a little bit as well. Plus, with that small introduction, let me get into the PowerPoint, and I will first come with a kind of a, so today is going to be a nice coincidence as well. I'll come to that later within my talk. Let me first share my screen. Right, I believe you all see my screen. So I've changed my title to Fostering a Culture of Environmental Stewardship and Sustainability. Right. Perhaps most of you all already know what are these terms, and some of you might be there for whom these terms might seem quite new and quite strange. It doesn't matter. Just let's go ahead. And once we finish our discussion, please make sure that you're going to be interactive as much as possible. If ever you do have any question, you may always ask me. And I would really prefer to a discussion type talk rather than me delivering the talk entirely. And last afternoon also, we had a nice interactive session. You had many questions. So you came up with your own queries and questions and issues, and we tried our best to answer them as well. So today as well, we'll follow the same pattern, right? So the topic is fostering a culture of environmental stewardship and sustainability. This is a huge responsibility that lies ahead of you, especially you being the youth. You represent a very critical and crucial segment of the society. Very critical segment. Right? How old are you now? What is your average age right now? Huh? Hello? Okay. So you represent the youth of the country and youth of the global community. So it's a real, yeah, 22. All right. It's going to be 21, 22. Thank you. 23 sometimes, perhaps. Yeah. It is the best segment of societies, or in terms of the society and the social stratification. You represent a very critical and a crucial age, because it's up to you that the world would be handing over all sorts of problems, not just the privileges, not just the benefits, not just the advantages, but also all sorts of challenges, issues, problems. Everything is going to be handed over to you for you to seek for solutions. So you will have to embrace them. You will have to take those challenges and face the changes, and you will have to have the resilience. You will have to have the adaptability, the power, the innovation and creativity out of everything to face them in the most successful way. So in this context, environment plays a huge role. Among the other challenges that the world faces right now, it might be the economic challenges, it might be various sorts of ethnic and social sort of challenges, it might be the health crisis, especially if you go back to just 2-3 years. The entire world faced the corona pandemic, a huge sort of a health crisis. Among everything, may it be health, may it be economy, may it be other social problems, may it even be education. Can we just think that education sometimes becomes challenging? Yes, it does. Among everything, environment is something that we will have to pay a very, very critical attention. So today's talk, these 1.5 or 2 hours time, I just want you to be sensitized about the world and the environment that we live in, right? That is my only objective, to make you sensitized, to make you aware, to make you feel that the world requires your innovativeness, your creativity, your enthusiasm, your attitudes and motivation as individual beings, as teams, as communities, and as a nation, in order to solve these problems, to contribute to solve these problems, to do your role, to do your individual role, to address these problems, right? So that is my ultimate objective. I don't have any like big time objectives of this just very short talk. I would really be happy if you all become a little more, at least a little more sensitized, a little more sensible for the problems that we face in the environment today, right? So I believe it's clear. So with that thought in mind, let us focus on this content, right? Just be concentrated. Just be focused on what we are going to talk today, because you all are coming from a diverse background. I'm not going to have only natural resource students. I'm not going to have only food science students. It's a kind of a nice mix of students. The diversity is there. So make sure that you keep an eye, you listen to it well, you engage it in an active manner, you take the message in at the end of the day, right? Okay. So what is this? What is this? At least as the picture depicts, you all can see it's a part of an island, right? Are we an island nation? Are we an island nation? What do you think? We are an island nation too. So this is also a part of an island that I'm having in this slide. Right? Let me quickly move to this web page. Right, I hope you all can see this. So it's coming from National Geographic. This Pacific Island country is disappearing. What happens next? This Pacific Island country is disappearing. What happens next? How many of you not think that we might feel the same situation? We might be in the same situation in some 1.5 decades, in some 2 decades, in some 3 decades time. We, the Sri Lankans, might be there in this sort of a title in National Geographic in 20 years time. Highly possible. So we have to, each and every one of us has this responsibility to think sustainably, to divert our course of action. If we have not been taken any action, if we have not been having any concern, it's high time, it's the right time that you have to inculcate that thing in your minds. In whatever the things that you would do, you have to become sustainable. You have to think in a way that the Earth is a single planet. This Earth and its systems, including the nature and the environment, are providing these services and products to us, not in an easy way. It is coming to us in a very, very difficult way. We are simply extracting the Earth's resources in a way that it's never sustainable. It can hardly bear it and manage it because it's a constant single Earth. What do you know about the human population right at this point? The global human population, it's 8 billion plus. 8 billion plus. When we were students like you, the 9 billion was the huge big time figure, which was predicted to be reached only by 2050. Now that we are here sitting in 2024 and we have more than 8 billion people on this Earth, and the Earth has been the same Earth. It has been the same constant planet. And what do you think about the resources? Right? Of course, there are 2 types of resources. There are renewable resources or replenishable resources. There are non-renewable resources. But thinking about the past 100 years, go back to 100 years and think about the population that it had. And now, that's going to be 8 billion plus population. But the same Earth, just a single planet, right? So now you must be able to realize that there's a huge disparity between these extraction requirement or between this demand and the amount of ability to provide for that, to supply for that demand. So that's a kind of a very huge disparity. It's a matter of thinking for the human beings who are inhabiting this Earth, to think in a way, are we going to continue the same rates of extraction, same rates of utilization, same rates of pollution and contaminating this Earth and its system? Are we going to do that? Or are we going to halt it? Are we going to discontinue that? Are we going to manage it in a wise way? So those are the real-time problems that the world faces today, which is the root cause for many of the environmental challenges that we are facing as global citizens at this point, right? So these sort of information are always available. Updated knowledge, updated information are always available in Google, right? This is just, I just Googled National Geographic and I just typed here what are the things that I wanted to type in terms of this Pacific Island country. So in the same way, you could, if you have this motivation, if you have this quest to search for the most updated scenarios, the most updated conditions and trends with respect to the environment, which is actually seriously threatened at this point because of the human activities, because of the anthropogenic activities. Anthropogenic, that is human-induced, human-caused. Anthropo is human, right? Anthropo-capital is human capital. Anthropogenic is the problem is caused by the humans. So I'm sure now that in many of your minds, now the global warming should be there, the pollution should be there, the marine pollution should be there, the plastic problem is there. So now that you might be imagining about the problems that are created by the humans, plus the urban sprawling, the cities being so crowded and all that. And then the outcomes and consequences of all these, the fog, the smoke, the air pollution, the polluted waters, all sorts of things are coming to your mind, I guess, when you say anthropogenic issues and their consequences on the environment and this single earth, which has been having some constant amount of resource. It's true that there are cycles, right? You all know that. There are biogeochemical cycles. There is the carbon cycle, there is the oxygen cycle, there are the hydrological cycle. It is true that they would circulate, most of them would circulate. But at the same time, we have to think, is the pressure that we place something that can be borne, something that can be born and managed by this constant planet, this constant system, right? So I believe you all just went through the title. This Pacific Island country is disappearing. Is disappearing. What happens next? It's a real problem. Tuvalu, a Pacific Island nation, on the front line of the climate crisis. On the front line of the climate crisis. As I mentioned earlier, we might well be having our country's name on National Geographic, BBC or CNN or whatever in 20 years' time, in 15 years' time. Even right at this point, this time, we are in the list, right? We are in the list. By the end of this century, we are going to be in heavy risk because we are an island nation. We are an island nation. So almost all island nations will have the risk. And our very closest neighbor, Maldives, is in the list. Just beneath Tuvalu and just in the top 10, perhaps top 10, 20, it's going to be there. So Maldives might have their risk predicted to be in towards 2050, but right at this point, Tuvalu might come even earlier. But the hopeful thing, the fortunate thing is today, the world also thinks about adaptability. How are we going to face these climate challenges? How are we going to be resilient against them? How are we going to be adaptive against them? So not until all these waters come into us, we are thinking of ways where we can escape. We are thinking of ways where we can escape because we have to. We have to. And sometimes there are certain instances where nature will take the course. We don't have anything to do after that time. So we have created some imbalance. We have created some disruption. We have created an irreversible intervention on the nature, which is the global climate change, the global warming. So once we exceed a certain point, those are called as thresholds. You may sometimes have encountered in your advanced level curricula, thresholds. Once we exceed them, it becomes irreversible. It cannot be restored back by the nature. The nature's ability to restore it becomes zero. It does not have any ability to restore it back after it surpasses, after it exceeds this threshold. We call them tipping points. Tipping points. So in order for the climate change and the global warming to be in a manageable level, it has been researched, it has been informed by the researchers some number of years ago that we have to keep the global temperature rise. Global temperature rise, right? The average global temperature rise below 2 degrees Celsius when compared to the pre-industrial time. Now, this was a lengthy definition, right? Pre-industrial times usually means around 1800s. 1800 විතර කාලයට සාපේක්ෂව අපි වර්තමානයේ වෙනකොට ගෝලීය සාමාන්‍ය උෂ්ණත්වය. So when you take average values, you know how to take it, right? එතකොට එක රටක ගොඩාක් රස්නේ තියෙනවා, තව poles වල northern pole එක southern pole එක තියෙනවා, ඒක ගොඩාක් උණුසුමෙන් අඩු උෂ්ණත්වය තියෙනවා. So you take it an average temperature, average global temperature, right? ඊට අමතරව එකම රටේ වුණත් සමහර අවස්ථාවල තියෙන්න පුළුවන් seasonal temperature changes. ඔය කියන හැමදේම සලකලා තමයි average and diurnal temperature changes also there. daytime temperature and nighttime temperature at Venice, right? So please take this into your mind. It's about average temperature, global average temperature, right? So the global average temperatures should be kept, temperature rise, the increase should be kept below 2 degrees Celsius. Increase එක 1800 ගණන් වල තිබිච්ච pre-industrial time එකේ තිබිච්ච temperature එකට වඩා Celsius අංශක 2කට වැඩිපුර අපි global temperature එක average temperature එක increase කරන්න හේතු වෙන විදිහට වැඩ කළොත් අපේ climate change එක ඇති කරමින් අපි මේක continue කරගෙන ගියොත් මේ විදිහට පරිසරයට pressure එකක් දෙන එක continue කරොත් we are going to be in trouble. So that has been foreseen, that has been predicted, hopefully, fortunately that has been predicted. And these research are always continuously going on, constantly continuously going on, so that the 2 degrees Celsius level is also now dropped to 1.5 degrees Celsius. Researchers now warn that if we are going to hit it at 1.5 Celsius, then still we are going to be prone to numerous consequences and vulnerabilities. Now that I believe you all got an understanding, global climate change is a real issue. It is. It is a real issue. I believe most of you, the majority of you, very well know the primary cause behind the global warming and the global climate change. The primary cause is nothing other than the fossil fuel burn. Right? I believe during your advanced level, you might have gone through numerous curricula where this carbon dioxide, increasing carbon dioxide levels the increase in carbon dioxide levels in the atmosphere cause the global warming. It's not just the carbon dioxide, right? It also is the methane, and there are various kinds of other greenhouse gases too. Give me a second, right? I believe you all know about the greenhouse gases, and actually methane has a higher potential to rise the temperature up, right? However, we all know that fossil fuels, when we burn them, we emit carbon dioxide. Right. So we just going towards global climate change because it's one of the, like, if I ask just a 6th grade student, what is the most pressing environmental challenge, environmental issue of the world today, I'm sure that he'll be telling me that it's nothing but climate change or global warming or something like that. So that's the most pressing environmental issue, yes, when it comes to environment. So we have to be very careful. Are we contributing to that? Are we contributing to the global climate change? Of course, yes. We could have told that we are not contributing if at least we were relying on a kind of a major way on renewable resources for our energy. The device that you are joining to this meeting is being powered by the energy that is coming from fossil fuel. My computer, the fan, the lights that I do have in my room, in the same way, whatever the electrical appliances that you do have in your room right now, they are being powered by the energy that's coming from the fossil fuels, basically fossil fuels. Because in Sri Lanka, you know, the national grid is supplied by the energy that's coming from coal and other fossil fuels, the thermal energy, thermal power plants that are run by fossil fuels, right? It's only a certain other percentage that is going to be functioned with the hydropower generation. So we are not sustainable at that level. So we are contributing, yes, because we emit carbon dioxide, we burn fossil fuels. Think about all the vehicles that you would find on a road. We emit carbon dioxide, right? There's a fact that we are a small country, we are still developing. So compared to the developed nations, compared to the big time countries, we are yet a small party who are contributing in a lesser way. Yes, that's true, but still, we have to have that common responsibility. Common but differentiated. Common but differentiated. Not as much as a developed country should do, but we also have that responsibility of bringing down the carbon emissions. Right, back to our story. What happens next? Tuvalu, a Pacific island nation on the front line of the climate crisis, is fighting to retain its land and its identity. Now, this gives you some emotional sense. Just imagine for a while that you were a Tuvaluan, I were a Tuvaluan, we were citizens of this small island, like, because it is just, the population is just less than 12,000. It's okay. But just for a while, if we could be in their boots, we could wear their boots, we could go into their thoughts, we could become them for a while. Can you just imagine the thoughts and the thought processes that would be going through their minds? That they know that they are going to be submerged, they are going to be swept off with the rising sea waves in certain number of years' time. See, it is not just about their existence. They won't die, right? They won't die. They would exactly be rescued. But the existence and the identity, what can happen to that? What can happen to that? So when you go out from your home and you stay for a couple of days in some other place, you get the feeling that you are out of home, right? So what can you think about the mindset, about the thoughts that they would have right at the current times, that they know very well that they are going to be submerged, sunken. Though it is a small island nation, right? Some of you might know what are atolls, right? It's a cluster of small islands. So this is something like that. There's a number of islets. We call them islets. Island nation, a small nation, but still they have their own identity. They have their own history. They have their own social norms, rituals, everything. That's going to be so unique to them. Now that they know that they have to leave everything. Now that they know that they have to leave everything. So this is just one single desperate example of the effects and consequences of climate change. And every one of us are part of the problem. Every one of us have caused at least by 0.00001% to these sort of incidents. Right? Just one single desperate situation. Right? Now let's watch a small video clip and then get into the talk back.
Your Excellencies, honored guests, ladies and gentlemen, Talofa and warm Pacific greetings from Tuvalu. Last year, I addressed this August Assembly proclaiming that we must take bold and alternative action today to secure tomorrow. I explained that although we needed global collaboration to end the climate crisis, we in the Pacific would not sit idly by and wait for the world to act. Today, I speak again from my country, from a small islet that is likely to be one of the first spots in Tuvalu to be submerged by rising sea levels. Since COP26, the world has not acted, and so we in the Pacific have had to act. We have seen temperature rise projections remain well above 1.5 degrees Celsius, foretelling the imminent disappearance of islets like this one. We have had to take our own precautionary steps with the Future Now project. As our land disappears, we have no choice but to become the world's first digital nation. Our land, our ocean, our culture are the most precious assets of our people. And to keep them safe from harm, no matter what happens in the physical world, we'll move them to the cloud. Islands like this one won't survive rapid temperature increases, rising sea levels, and droughts, so we'll recreate them virtually. Piece by piece, we'll preserve our country, provide solace to our people, and remind our children and our grandchildren what our home once was. This is also a matter of sovereignty. We in Tuvalu are taking bold steps to ensure that our statehood and our maritime boundaries are permanently maintained despite extreme land loss due to climate change and sea level rise. Our digital nation will provide an online presence that can replace our physical presence and allow us to continue to function as a state. We have been working on these initiatives for the past year, building our capacity to retain and preserve our nation and the unity of our people, even as climate change spirals out of control. Global action must be taken to provide the best case scenario, but we in the Pacific are planning and preparing for a worst case scenario. We need to be able to secure our statehood, our maritime boundaries, and our endowments, no matter what happens in the future. The world's inaction has led our Pacific region to take greater action and forge our own path as leaders on the international stage. But our action alone cannot stop the current trajectory of climate change. Only concerted global effort can ensure that Tuvalu does not move permanently online and disappear forever from the physical plane. Our Tuvaluan culture dictates that we all must share responsibility for the global predicament caused by the climate crisis. Together, we must stop fossil fuels emissions and fossil fuels production and majorly boost financing for loss and damage, mitigation and adaptation measures. It is not just Tuvalu that is affected, but the world is facing extreme weather events and shocking temperatures. Without a global conscience and a global commitment to our shared well-being, we may soon find the rest of the world joining us online as their lands disappear. It has long been the time for action, but we have not stepped up to the challenge. We must start doing so today. Otherwise, within a lifetime, Tuvalu will only exist here. Faftailasi, Tuvalu Mateatua.
Right. I believe you got the idea. Right?
We are sinking, but so is everyone else. We cannot wait for speeches when the sea is rising around us all the time.
Right. So you got the idea, right? So if it was like 10 years ago, if it was like 10 years ago, 10, 15 years ago, if we ever heard something like this, we would simply just discard it away, seeing it as crazy, looking at it as crazy. Can you just believe that there might be a nation which is going to be entirely operating on the cloud, entirely operating in the metaverse as a digital nation, no physical presence, no physical land for them to inhabit as their own land? We would have seen it as a severely crazy idea if anybody was coming up with this sort of an idea some 10, 15 years ago. But now, we in reality are finding this case of Tuvaluans who actually are prepared already to become a digital nation once they go inside, like once they go sunken, once they go submerged. In a way, it's a very shocking sort of news, right? So you're not going to have your own land to call it home. You're going to be inhabitant in some other country as climate refugees or some sort of a name, right? So this was a conference of parties to the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change in 2 years ago, not just the immediate past one, the before. This Tuvaluan Prime Minister or the Foreign Minister, who were the responsible person, he was delivering his talk from the Tuvaluan Islands that they are having these climate resilience plans. And he emphasizes that it is not only going to be them on the list. If you're not acting fast, if you're not acting in the rate that it requires, there might be many other countries following them in the list. It's really shocking for us to see that countries have to become digital nations. Countries have to become just operate on the metaverse. Countries just will have to have their artifacts, their culture, their history, everything on the cloud. Hopefully, unfortunately, now the United Nations and various other governmental, non-governmental, intergovernmental, and global organizations are actually taking numerous actions and initiatives to preserve and to make sure that Tuvalu and islands are even more resilient to climate change and these disasters, these sea level rise and everything. They're taking their actions to a certain level to move the date, to move the year where they will have to become a digital nation, right? So these things are happening, but these are real-time sort of experiences that we get to see today. And we never can guarantee that this situation might not come to us as an island nation in some 20 years. So we have to have this motivation. We have to have this attitude. We have to pass this attitude to our future generations, right? In the same way that we, as academic institutions, we deliver these messages to you all. And it's up to you to deliver the same message, the attitude, the motivation, the enthusiasm, and the responsibility to your next generations too. It cannot be done only verbally, right? For example, that I deliver a lecture and you get some sort of notes out of it, and then you just try to deliver the same message to some other group of students or maybe another members of your community. It has to be delivered, it has to be diffused in a way that is going to be far effective than verbal communication, than written communication, which can only be achieved through action. It can only be achieved through action. So what do I mean by action here? Action, you all have to have your own sustainable lifestyle, own sustainable thinking in order to become a responsible person. And then your self-satisfaction that you would gain out of that would never be able to be beaten by anything else. So that is a message that I wanted to give you today through these small slides containing some interesting information, right? When I say information, that also is something that we can actually discuss. Information, does it matter? Does information matter? What do you think? ඔගොල්ලෝ මොකද හිතන්නේ? Information කියන දේ අවශ්‍යයිද? Is it something important? What do you know about information? What do you know about information? මොකද information ගැන හිතන්නේ? Right? So we also have students from the computer science in the Department of Physical Science and Technology. What do you know about information? මොනවද ඔබ information ගැන දන්නේ? කාට හරි කියන්න මොන හරි අදහසක් information කියන්නේ මොකක්ද කියලා? Yeah, it's processed data. Do we need processed data? Do we need? Do they have a utility? Does information have a utility? Is it having a use or a purpose? Very good. You say it's information. That's processed data. Data after processing. Processed data. Why do we need them? What is the requirement? What is the utility of data processed into information? We need it to get decisions. Very good. For us to take decisions, we need information. Decisions can hardly be taken only with the use of data, right? Data is required, essentially required. But in the raw form, data can help making nice decisions, wise decisions, effective decisions, only hardly. Data will have to be processed, will have to be transformed, will have to be converted into useful information. Why? Because when it becomes an information, it's going to be easy for us to use. Yeah, it might come as a news, it might come as an indicator, it might come as a kind of a very motivational sort of a thing. Now that when we see that these global warming, sea level rise and everything has caused this much of land to be sunken by the end of this year. This much of people are going to be relocated. So those are information, right? After acquiring data, after going through surveys and all that, now that they're being presented as information. So this information gives you this shock that you require to solve the problem. Unless you are having that, unless you get that feeling, it's very hardly that you would be awakened by the presence of data. You could hardly be awakened. You would act when you have information with you, when you have indicators with you, when you have various sorts of analyzers give you the data, give you the information and give you the indicators. So decisions can best be made with useful information, right? So that you all, I'm really happy that you all got this, got what I wanted, right? So information is crucial. With that, let us go back to the PowerPoint now. Right. So we just got to hear this very shocking, very sensitive talk, very sensitive scenario that these Pacific Islanders are going to face in a little time to come. So what are the resolutions? What are the solutions that are being suggested by the global bodies like the United Nations? So last year, this talk was also delivered last year, COP27, right? So that is before last. COP is Conference of Parties. Every year, you may know sometimes that there are agreements being signed, treaties being signed, agreements being entered by various governments of the world, like 200, 600 sometimes. There are many countries as parties to different agreements. Right? You might have heard about this climate conference and all that. So there are these sort of agreements. And one convention is Convention on Biological Diversity, the CBD. And the convention that is going to be taken here is the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, UNFCCC. So UNFCCC will always have a conference of parties. It has a number of parties, governments of states across the world are parties to this convention. So we need to combat climate change impacts as a global community, right? We need to act locally, act in a way that we as individuals, as locally, as governments, as states, but towards a global cause. Think globally. We have to think globally, right? We have to empathize the people in the Tuvalu Islands. Yes. We have to think in a global way, but we can actually all the time, we can act locally, act as individuals. We can do our own part. So in doing this, the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change will have this conference of parties. Conference of parties, we call it COP. So last time it was held in Egypt. As I remember, the Egypt, Dubai, and there are various, like, this time it's going to be held in Azerbaijan, right? So in this November also. So Sri Lanka would also participate. And we come into different agreements, right? Likewise. So COP is a major meeting. In these COPs, they take actions, they come into conclusions, they come into agreements, they suggest what have we got to do for these sort of islands. So as a result, last year, towards the end of last year, 2023, this island nation got into an agreement with Australia, that Australian government should be providing support for the Tuvaluan Islanders to become resilient, to become climate adapted, to do whatever the things that they could do in order to help them feel secure, right? Now, what do you know about Australia? Do they as a country, Australia, do they have a responsibility towards climate change, towards global warming? We can compare with ourselves. You take Sri Lanka and Australia. What do you think? Right? What do you think? Australia contributes a lot to global warming because they are top in the list of coal exporters. They are top in the list of coal exporters. So to whom they are exporting their coal or fossil fuels? To various countries of the world. But still, they are the origin of the problem, right? So they continue to export coal. So they have to have this responsibility of saving people out from consequences of climate change, because they know very well the consequences of coal burning. They very well know the consequences of coal burning. Coal, gallangu. Gallangu burn කරාම මොකද වෙන්නේ? Carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases would emit, which would ultimately contribute to global warming. So whoever who emits carbon dioxide will have to be the responsible, will have to be responsible for these problems and consequences too. So Australia therefore has a responsibility. So they are bound to help people who are going to be climate refugees like this in the world. So last year, towards the end, there had been this agreement between Australia and Tuvalu Islands to provide PRO, to provide a residential facility for a maximum of 280 individuals per year or something like that. There's a quota. So whatever it is, losing your own home is going to be something that is irreversible when it comes to your emotions and when it comes to your mental, psychological, spiritual well-being, right? So it cannot be compensated by providing a PR. It cannot be taken that easy, but at least you have to take those sort of steps, because this is a real-time problem that we real-time experience. So they know that their islands are going to be sunk. At least certain parts of these islands will be, because the highest sea levels are very low across the island. It's like not more than 10 feet in any place, right? So Sri Lanka, for us, we are little fortunate than them in that aspect. All right. So this is just some of the texts that I could just copy and paste about this tipping point thing, right? Irreversible damages can be the case when we exceed these thresholds. So one of those thresholds were 2 degrees Celsius compared to the pre-industrial average temperatures of the world. Now that recently, researchers have found that it cannot be any further, it cannot be kept at 2. It has to be kept at 1.5. If we as a global community are going to exceed the global average temperature rise compared to 1800 C is going to be 1.5, then we are highly likely to be vulnerable to irreversible consequences. Irreversible consequences, right? Because you know that with the climate with the temperatures becoming higher, the global permafrost is going to retreat, the glaciers would retreat, sea level would rise, and it would bring enormous amounts of consequences together with that, right? It's not just that. There are various kinds of other effects on the biological diversity. There are pollination patterns, there are reproductive aspects, numerous impacts. And when it comes to human health, again, a lot of impacts. So climate change is the real issue, right? I believe you all know about the definition or the distinction between climate and weather as well, right? Climate and weather are two things, okay? So weather is a short-term sort of a thing, where the climate is not that. It's a long-term thing. And climate change is also not only this anthropogenic change. Climate change can happen naturally. You all know that there had been a geological history for this earth, right? Right? So 3.5 billion years ago, what happened? It's likewise. There had been some zonation in this geological time scale. Yeah? So during this geological time scale, there had been climate changes, yes. They were natural, right? I believe you all have watched the Ice Age movies. They were natural. But the thing is, the climate change that we are experiencing right now for these past 100 years or so is not natural. It's anthropogenically driven. That is the problem, right? We cannot simply go against the nature. If it had been the natural one, we could have just made up our minds. But we very well know that this is simply caused by anthropogenic activities, the major one being fossil fuel burning, right? It is not just fossil fuel burning, right? In the same time, when we burn fossil fuels in rapid rate, what do? We also clear the forests. We keep clearing the forests, right? We keep polluting the ecosystems. Then what happens? Then the disparity of this carbon balance even widens. ඒ කියන්නේ මොකද? carbon dioxide emit වෙනවා වගේම carbon dioxide fix කරන්න processes naturally තියෙනවා. right? ඒ නිසා තමයි carbon dioxide carbon cycle එකක් විදිහට හරියට ක්‍රියාත්මක වෙන්නේ environment. නමුත් අපි මේකට intervene කරලා තියෙනවා irreversible damages ඇති කරන තරමටම අපි carbon dioxide සහ අනෙකුත් greenhouse gases පුළුවන් තරම් atmosphere එකේ වැඩි කරන අතරේ ඒගොල්ලන්ව fix කරන්න පුළුවන්. ඒ තියෙන carbon dioxide amount එක fix කරන්න පුළුවන් agents. ඒ කියන්නේ plants, forests, vegetation පුළුවන් තරම් අඩු කරන්න. Right? It's a huge big problem. And when we have numerous spectrum of activities that also keep damaging the natural carbon cycle, agricultural practices and all that. Plus, carbon dioxide fix කරන තව කණ්ඩායමක් ඉන්නවා ocean. Right? Those who are coming from biological stream, you may know about phytoplanktons. Right? Physical air දන්නවා. Phytoplanktons කියලා. හරි අපි කියනවා ශාක ප්ලවාංග. They also can fix the carbon dioxide. What we have done for the past, especially the past 2 decades, marine environment, we have disrupted severe. Marine environment වලට අපි පුළුවන් තරම් disruptions ඇති කරලා තියෙනවා. This is a kind of a vicious cycle. Then climate change එකේ impact නිසාම climate scenario එක ඇතුළේ තියෙන අනිකුත් systems නැවත restore කරගන්න බැරි මට්ටමට threaten වෙනවා, vulnerable වෙනවා. So this is a vicious cycle. Like ඒ consequence එක නිසා තව ප්‍රශ්නයක් ඇති වෙනවා. ඒ ප්‍රශ්න ඇති වෙලා නිසා consequence එක තව trigger වෙනවා. Something like that. So this is very hard for us to solve unless we identify our individual responsibility, plus unless we foster innovation and creativity to the level best. That is why I always keep asking my students, make sure that you do have a nice innovator inside you. You do have a nice creator, nice innovator and an inventor inside you. You being the agent of the change that the world requires today, you have to have that power to bring him out. So your innovativeness, creativity, plus, as I mentioned in the very beginning, you are going to be in a nicely diverse community once you are going to find yourselves on campus, right? You are representing 4 departments, right? Sometimes Dr. Choshani should also be here among this audience. So when she was a student in Sabaragam University of Sri Lanka, they did a nice kind of an innovation together with their colleagues from other departments like Department of Computing and various kinds of, like, you can get together and come up with nice solutions that are heavily required for today's world in adapting to these challenges, in making sure that the world becomes more climate resilient. For example, it might be something related to some agricultural crop going to be grown in some place where it was not used to be grown. But with the help of your innovation, plus the technology, and various kinds of other, maybe AI or computer science, whatever that. Right? So the best example that I can give you today, the technology has come into a point where technology is even borrowing our terms, right? The ecosystem term, the term ecosystem actually is coming from the environmental domain. Ecosystem, right? But I'm sure you all have heard it before. Ecosystem, පරිසර පද්ධතියක් කියලා මම ඒක සිංහලෙන් කියන්නේ. Now the term ecosystem has been in our domain for ages, and then it actually was applied in the environmental pollution, environmental management, pollution prevention, pollution and treatment, industrial systems. So they also were borrowing our term ecosystem, industrial ecosystem. Now that ecosystem term is very well found across all sorts of disciplines, even computer. So we have to be creative to take concepts from the nature, take concepts from the environment, and put them into our creative ideas, come up with nice innovative solutions, which might ultimately bring us towards greater achievements in terms of adaptability. So challenges කියනවා එනකොට අපි මොකද කරන්න ඕනේ? We have to make sure that we are adaptable, we are tolerant, we are resilient to those challenges. It similarly applies to your, like, the individual being, right? ඒක පරිසර සම්බන්ධම වෙන්න අවශ්‍ය නැහැ. Changes and challenges අපිට person කෙනෙක් වශයෙන් උත් එන්න පුළුවන්. ඔයගොල්ලන්ට යුනිවර්සිටි එක ඇතුළට එන එකත් challenge එකක් වෙන්න පුළුවන්. ඔයගොල්ලන් ඉඳපු පරිසරයෙන් අමුතුම පරිසරයකට ඇවිල්ලා තව crowd එකක් එක්ක ජීවත් වෙන්න වෙනවා. Right? It's a kind of a new society that you have to face. හරි ඉස්සලා ඉගෙන ගත්ත pattern එකයි දැන් ඉගෙන ගත්ත pattern එකයි දෙකක් වෙන්න වෙනවා. medium එක වෙනස්. Those are challenges. Embrace them. And make sure that you are tolerant. ඒවා withstand කරන්න පුළුවන් වෙන්න අවශ්‍යයි. Right? ඒ climate කියන කතාන්දරේදී අපි wide spectrum එකක් අතර කතා කරන දේවල්ම අපේ individual being කෙනෙක්ට අපිට ඒ විදිහටම apply කරන්න පුළුවන්. Right. So I was talking about climate adaptation. Please make sure that you wake up your innovator that is lying inside you. අනිවාර්යෙන් ඒක අවශ්‍යයි. මේ අවුරුදු 4 ඕගොල්ලෝ පුළුවන් තරම්. And the other is the collaboration. ගොඩක් එකතු වෙන තරමට ඕගොල්ලන්ගේ outcome එක ලස්සන වෙයි. Right? From different disciplines. You ultimately have that chance being in our faculty. අනිත් faculties වගේ නෙමෙයි අපේ faculty එකේ ඒ නිසා ගොඩාක් විශේෂයි. ඒ අවස්ථාවල් ප්‍රයෝජනෙට අරගෙන innovations කරන්න. ඒවට motivation එක ඇති කරගන්න. Right? මම පොඩි cases ඕන තරම් ඔයගොල්ලන්ට තියෙනවා. ඔයගොල්ලෝ අපිව හම්බ වුණාම තව ඕනනම් කියන තරම් අපිට ගොඩාක් cases තියෙනවා. Right? Past experiences. So that about climate resilience. Right? And I have okay. So at one point we discussed about data and information, right? Data and information. And I was really happy to see that you give me the nicest explanation that one could give me. That is data, once processed, become information. Right? That's a nicest, simple explanation. And information can be made using decision making. Very correct. In the same way, data can be converted to indicators. Why do we need indicators? අපිට indicators අවශ්‍ය වෙන්නේ ඇයි? Why do we need indicators? Because we need to get the idea in a very short time, in an attractive and an impressive way, so that our actions might be determined accordingly. Right? An indicator helps us to take action in an effective manner, in other words. An indicator serves that purpose. Right? And also, an indicator would help us to compare. An indicator would help us to compare different scenarios very rationally. Right? On a rational basis, on a justified basis, we can compare when you have indicators on your hand. So what I have given in this slide is an indicator, the ecological footprint. The ecological footprint. It's a measure that gives you the idea how fast we consume resources and generate waste. Right? This also we have to understand. In the same way that whenever we consume something, we all the time we create a waste as well. We create a waste. Whenever we generate something, whenever we use something, consume something, we generate waste. Whenever we keep the bulb on, that is, we consume the energy, we waste the energy too. There's a huge percentage of energy that's going to be wasted. Because in a normal light bulb, the efficiency is not 100%, right? You all know that. So that's waste is there. Whenever we use something, we waste something too. Sometimes we contaminate, we pollute the environment as well with that waste that we generate. So ecological footprint gives you an idea or an indicate you how fast you consume the resources on this constant planet. I said in the beginning that it is just the same planet that was here some 100 years ago. But the population has exponentially expanded. The same earth, the same systems, the same amounts of water in the rivers, streams, oceans and all that. But what has happened to the populations of the consumers? It has been exponentially grown. So these sort of indicators gives you the idea how fast you utilize them, how fast you use and consume them and generate waste, so that you also exert another additional burden too. not just extracting, but also polluting the same system, right? Compared to how fast the nature can absorb our waste and generate new resources. The nature would also have its own rates of replenishing water resources, regenerating the forests, replenishing the atmosphere, ameliorating the atmosphere, right? Taking back, if you pollute it, to restore it back, it requires a time. What do you think about these two rates? Heavily despair. The rate at which we consume and we pollute this system is way higher, way greater than the rate that the nature could simply provide those services to us, right? So that is a problem, actually. So the ecological footprint gives you an idea about that. Footprint එක කියලා කියන්නේ මොකක්ද? What is denoted by a footprint? A certain amount of land, right? Like you can actually measure your footprint using maybe square centimeters, right? Footprint එක කියලා කියන්නේ වගේ එකක් නේ. So the ecological footprint is a land equivalent of whatever the resources that you would use and the amount of pollution that you create as an individual person across your lifespan. For an individual's ecological footprint is the land equivalent, right? So that would be the land that is going to be dedicated in producing your toothbrush, producing your toothpaste, producing the milk of the glass of milk that you would consume in the morning, producing your timber needs, the furniture needs in your house, producing your fabrics that you wear. What do you think? It's a huge amount of resources that's going into your t-shirt, that's going into your trouser. Huge amount of resources. Is it only only those raw material? No. It also is the water. It also is the land. It also is the energy that goes into those processes. ඔය කියන හැම දෙයක්ම land value එකට convert කරන්න පුළුවන් formulas පාවිච්චි කරලා, right? Equations පාවිච්චි කරලා. ඒ කියන land values ඔක්කොම sum up කරාම එන එකට තමයි අපි කියන්නේ individual කෙනෙක්ගේ ecological footprint. A country's ecological footprint is that the land equivalent of all sorts of requirements and the pollution it creates as a country, as a population of a country. Entirely ගත්තහම ඒගොල්ලන්. So we say today, අපි අද කියනවා, we are simply overstepping ourselves. That is, our ecological footprint, the global ecological footprint is far beyond what the global or the earth and its systems can match. ඒක match කරන්න බැරි තරමට අපි ඒක overstep කළා කියන්නේ කියලා. Right? I believe you got the idea, right? These are indicators based on certain data. We convert them into reflectable figures so that we can compare actually, right? The ecological footprint of year 2000, we can simply now compare it with the ecological footprint of the globe in 2024 and see how complex have we grown, how complicated have our needs and demands become. At the same time, what amount of pressure have we increased in terms of polluting the environment, polluting this earth, polluting the water resources, because everything can be calculated and summed up in this ecological footprint. Based on the ecological footprint, right, based on these, there are organizations. Actually, this ecological footprint concept was brought up in 1992 or 3, early 1990s, right? See, hopefully there had been those people who had this enthusiasm and creativity and innovativeness in their minds to bring up this sort of an indicator. හරි 92 2022 අවුරුදු 20කටත් වැඩි, right? Hopefully we have had those people in this earth, on this earth, in this world. They have done a great deal of, they have delivered a great deal of motivation and innovation for us to tackle the problems of environment today. Because of these things, it has been so easy and so effective that we could disseminate this knowledge. මේක awareness එක raise කරන්න ගොඩාක් උදව් වෙච්ච tool එකක්. So when you see this, you get this idea, oh, my ecological footprint is something that the earth can hardly bear. It cannot bear actually. My lifestyle would only suit this earth if it was around 1.75 times larger than what it is today. That is a real situation. අපි මුළු ජනගහනයම ගත්තොත් මේ මුළු ජනගහනයෙන්ම ඇති කරන ප්‍රෙෂර් එක දරන්න පුළුවන් වෙන්න තිබුණා if the earth was something that is at least 1.75 of its magnitude. මේ resources උත් එක්කලා තව 1.75ක ගුණයක් විතර ලොකු දෙයක් වෙලා තිබ්බනම් මේ කියන පෘථිවිය කියන system එක right, including all the resources and everything. And you just believe that the factor is exceeding 1.75. 1.75 Earths. This single Earth is right now bearing the pressure that has to be actually managed by something like 1.75 of such Earths. That is a concept. Right? So, මේව පාවිච්චි කරලා Earth Overshoot Day කියන එක calculate කරනවා Ecological Footprint Organization එකේ. What is Overshoot Day? What is Overshoot Day? Or we call Debt Day. What is a debt? Debt එකක් කියන්නේ මොකක්ද? අපි යමක් borrow කරනවා, ණයට ගන්නවා. Right? Becoming to an overshoot is you finish it all. You just get finished with whatever the resources that are allowed for you to use during the entire 365 days. Now go to the second figure here, right? So in the x-axis you see 1971 and here you see the 2023, the last year, right? This is an extension of the same footprint concept. Here you see the overshoot day is somewhere in December 1975. And it was actually in harmony with just one Earth because December is the last of the months. And it's a matter of adjusting some number of weeks inside it since it is one Earth and it was like acceptably okay. If we finish up all the resources that the Earth was fairly giving to provide us, but we finish it some 2-3 weeks earlier. Right? අපි 365 දවසටම allocate කරලා තියෙන resources ටික December මාසේ දෙවෙනි සතිය හෝ පළවෙනි සතිය හෝ ඉවර කරනවා කියන්නේ අපි පොඩි deficit එකයි තියාගන්න. දැන් සති 3කට විතර කලින් අපි ඉවර කරලා තියෙනවා. අන්න ඒ වගේ අදහසක්. But you all can see very clearly how have we advanced the overshoot day during the course of time. During the course of time from 1970s, early 70s, see how have we taken it advanced to somewhere in August in the last 3 years. Last 3 years, right? Can you see it? And it is why I said we are actually in our demand side, we are actually putting a demand on the Earth and putting a pressure on its resources as pollution, which can only be managed if we ever had something like 1.7, then that we would keep quiet. So it's very high time that we have to act, right? Now, anybody, if you notice that 2020, it has not advanced much as August. Why? Anybody who could tell me the reason? I 2020 මෙච්චරටම පල්ලෙහාට එන්නේ නැතුව ඕගස්ට් වලට වෙනකම් එන්නේ නැතුව ඊට උඩින් රැඳුනේ ඇයි? Why had been there August but not the August first week at least? At least the trend was very slightly broken. Why? In 2020. Why is that? 2020? Very good. With the corona pandemic, the transportation became so restricted. Our needs actually became so low, right? It has been a kind of a real time that we all passed. At the same time, the resource pressure was also considerably and significantly became quite less. Plus, the pollution, specifically and especially the carbon dioxide amount that were released to the atmosphere, global atmosphere was reduced because the transportation was suspended, actually almost suspended in certain cities across the world, right? And I mentioned about a coincidence in the beginning, right? Do you know that for the year 2024, we right here, we talk and discuss about this thing, right on the Earth's overshoot day. So last year it has been August 2nd. Today it's August. It's again, today is August 2nd, right? It's not just the right coincidence, but it was August 1st, yesterday. Yesterday was the Earth's overshoot day for 2024. Right? So it's high time, severely high time, that we need to take action. August is just the 8th month, right? Can you just believe that we are just finishing all our resources that are dedicated for an entire 12 months right at the beginning of the 8th month? අටවෙනි මාසේ පටන් ගන්නකොටම අපිට පුළුවන් මේ විදිහට ඉවර කරලා සැනසීමෙන් ඉන්න. We can't. Right, today is August 1st. Yeah, sure. So I was really happy that it made a coincidence, right? Thank you for reminding me. So it is a rare coincidence, right? We are just delivering this discussion right on the Earth's overshoot day on 2024. Right? It's a kind of very significant sort of a thing. Right on the overshoot day, we are talking about conserving resources. And why have we got to do that? That is a basic objective of my talk. Why have we got to do that? We have to do that. By now, you must have realized, I guess, right? For this entire 1 hour or so, I think I was able to give you this feeling that we have no way out if we are not going to be prepared to conserve the resources. We have no way out. The only way out would lie at nice, innovative, sustainable solutions where we think about maximizing the resource use efficiency. That is, doing more with less or wasting less as much as we could. Wasting less. Please make sure that you don't waste. Once you find yourself in the cafeteria, serve your food only up to the level that you could consume. Don't waste. So on this very coincidental day, right, the Earth's overshoot day, I'm sorry, I am having that slide as well, right? Earth's overshoot day for this year. We are thinking about what can we do and how can we do it in order to make the world a better place for the generations to come. It has to be the responsibility of yours. Right? The date when humanity's demand on nature's resources surpasses Earth's capacity to regenerate them for the given years. So the Earth would not be able to regenerate right at the rate that we try to finish them. So that is the meaning here, right? So Earth would have a capacity all the time. And we are exceeding that capacity in terms of our extraction plus the pressure that we exert through pollution, right? You all know about pollution, right? And I see the participants dropping. I don't know whether the interest is now dropped. Perhaps the case, right? interest drop Anyway, I'll finish the talk soon. So we have to think about the resources, and we have to think about the way that the resources could be best put in use, optimized and maximized. How can we optimize the resource use and maximize the resource use efficiency, right? Working on challenges, environmental issues, resources. They are the link that would connect the economic development with these challenges. Actually, we cannot sacrifice the economic development rule. We cannot sacrifice economic development. For the sake of economic development, we cannot say keep away, fence around the resources, keep them away, keep them aside. No, we cannot do that. Because quality of life is something that we all strive for. Everybody has got the right, the democratic right. Every individual will have the right to live a quality of life, to enjoy a quality of life, to live a life with good quality, to live a life with well-being. So in order to secure the well-being is there, no hunger is there, water sufficiency is there, land sufficiency is there, we need to go for development, yes. to make sure that people are educated, to make sure that people are provided with enough health care. That is well-being in very simple terms. So any government, any state will always have to secure the well-being. So development is something that is necessary. That is where we find this term sustainable development, right? Sustainably development කෙනෙක් achieve කරන්න ඕනේ කියන තැනට අපි එන්නේ අන්න ඒ නිසා. I believe you all know about the sustainability. Perhaps in your O-level curricula, you must have gone through Tirasara Samvardhane. So please make sure that we all have a role to play in achieving sustainable development as a globe, as a global community, right? So these figures would nicely present you some figures related to see 1900, it was 7 billion tons of material extraction, whereas it's predicted to be 140 billion tons. එච්චර රේට් එකකින් එක්ස්ට්‍රැක්ට් කරනකොට රීප්ලෙනිෂ් කරන ඇබිලිටි එක කැපැසිටි එක නැහැ කියන එක අපි හැමෝටම දැන් තේරෙන කතාන්දරයක්. ඒ නිසා තමයි පුළුවන් තරම් අපි වේස්ට් ජෙනරේට් කරන එක අඩු කරන්න අවශ්‍යයි. ඒ වගේම අපි රිසෝසස් පාවිච්චි කරන එක පුළුවන් තරම් එෆිෂියන්සි එකකින් කරන්නත් අවශ්‍යයි. Right? So if you are really interested, you will be having numerous other nice concepts emerging in the field of environmental conservation today, like circular economy, 3R concepts, the 5R concepts, the 7R concepts, and all that. But these are all concepts and initiatives that are disseminated by different agencies and global bodies to make sure that individuals are motivated, individuals are sensitized, individuals are educated and made aware that we have our own role, and your role would actually make a difference when it comes to a bigger scale, right? So as the Faculty of Applied Sciences, what we want is that to make sure that our community is an exemplary community as a faculty, right? We do have 9 faculties in our university, right? I believe before you get on to the campus, it's better if you could just search through the web. What are the faculties that we do have in our Sabaragamu University of Sri Lanka, and different statistics perhaps. What are the departments and how are the departments running? What are the degrees that they offer, right? At least in our faculty. So we being a faculty that hosts a department called Department of Natural Resources, we have a responsibility actually. We do have that responsibility to become exemplary with all our community. Right? So you are going to be the newest members of our community, and we are really happy to welcome you all to this eco-conscious faculty. To make it an even eco-conscious faculty once you are here, right? A person who would actually segregate his or her waste and put your waste into the separate bins accordingly. Those are small attitudes that you really require in our course towards sustainability. Why do we need to segregate waste? Why do we need to separate and segregate waste? So if I give you a scenario like you can put everything in one garbage bin, or if there are separate bins for different sorts of waste, you put them separately. What do you prefer? You will eventually prefer the separating or the segregation, right? Why do we need to segregate? Because segregation helps us to recover the material. It helps us to recover the material. When some resource is found in a wrong media, when some resource is found in a wrong place, it can never become a resource anymore. But even a waste, when it is found in the correct media, when it is found in a correct form, that is pure waste, not contaminated, right? For example, a polythene, a pure polythene, a clean polythene, which is not contaminated, can well be recycled. But what if it is put in the common bin with all the food waste and everything? It becomes unusable anymore, not recyclable. So make sure these sort of little practices has to be like you make a ripple effect. Once you become a kind of a person who's going to be very exemplary, the people around you, the immediate circle would then look at you and they would also change. And then their immediate communities would also change. So make this ripple effect. That is what we really require so badly right at this point. Right? For good causes, every time become a maker of this ripple effect with good attitudes towards the environment, become an environmentalist award, become a person who is environmentally friendly. When you go to the shopping, when you go to the grocery marketing, whatever, take your own bag. And if it is going to be a cloth bag, then that would be even fun. And inevitably, the polythene bags come to our households, right? Inevitably, it's inevitable. We bring certain stuff and certain things come to us in polythene wraps. Make sure that you reuse it, or else you direct it to recycling. There are many recycling agents, recycling facilities today across many cities and urban centers. There are many. So you just will have to collect your clean polythene, clean PET bottles, or whatever the clean, especially when it comes to the HDPE, high density polythene, where the shampoo, the conditioners, the creams and everything, that they come in high density. So think about the material that has gone into it. It's a huge lot of material that are coming to your hand at a very huge cost to the environment. From what are polythene and plastic made? Are they coming from some renewable resource? No, they are not renewable. They are coming from fossil fuels. So non-renewable resources. It's a huge burden to the environment, right? Creating a huge ecological footprint. They are being produced. They are being transported to us. Perhaps some cosmetic things, they are coming from Thailand, India, or China, or wherever, right? Can you think about the amount of carbon dioxide that it emits during the ship navigation? So the product, once you have in your hand, it has a huge, big carbon footprint. Huge, big carbon footprint. Because it also always entails that navigation through the ships and everything. And then it comes to Colombo, and again through carbon dioxide emissions, through fossil fuel burning, it reaches you. And after, say, just 2 weeks' time, you just throw it away in the common municipal bin. What a waste. Make sure that you, as much as possible, direct them to recycle. They are very well recyclable once they find the correct media in the correct form, right? Not contaminated with anything else. Separately discarded to the right places. So those are the small things that we need to practice. And when you enter a room, if there is nobody in the room, but the fan is still going on, the light is still on, make sure that you can switch them off, right? If you see a tap that is open, make sure that you close it. All sorts of ways you can help save the resources, save energy, save water. Make sure that you do it. That's ultimately your part. Once you do your part, at least you are happy and you are satisfied. So make sure you become satisfied with your actions first, and then make that ripple effect. Try to change somebody else. So it also adds to your contention. So I believe we all could just go through some interesting information that were coming out from data, and some interesting decisions that were also coming out of data. Interesting decisions, right? We've been like, we would have seen them so crazy if it was some 10, 15 years ago, but right now we are sitting right there, that countries are becoming digitalized. A very crazy idea for somebody who was living in 2000. But today at 2024, we see them taking place. We see them happen. And it's no wonder if things are going to continue like this, we are going to find ourselves in such titles in BBC. So innovation is one greatly capable tool to make sure that resilience is achieved in an effective way. And you, as the youth of the country, have a great responsibility with the knowledge that you acquire from our faculty, from all 4 departments. Right? You don't need to be an NR student to come up with a resilient model. No, you all are. I'm 100% certain that all of you can contribute. All of you can contribute by becoming an environmentalist award, by becoming environmental conscious and sustainable in your own attitudes. You can create the change and come up with wonderful innovations, inventions, and creations. So with that concluding note, I would again congratulate you that you are going to be the newest most members of the faculty. So we wait to see you on campus. But before that even, right, we don't know if the campus, the university decides that your academic starts on an online platform, make it an opportunity. Make it an opportunity, because opportunities are not always coming to you. It's up to you to create the opportunity sometimes, and it's up to you to make sure that the opportunity is maximally utilized by you. If in case you are going to be like your academic is going to be started on online, don't worry. Don't ever worry. It's another opportunity for you all. Make sure that you develop various kinds of other skills that you can develop during that time. There might be certain opportunities that you would miss, right? It's very natural. Some opportunities you would miss by being here. Some opportunities you would gain by being somewhere, right? In the same way, there are multiple opportunities once you come here. Yes, true, but maintain the positivity all the time, right? I saw last evening as well, there were some questions, queries. When are we going to be on in person in the campus? Don't worry, right? You have to actually be happy about the state that we as state universities are running on at this crisis time, right? And you have to be happy that your families are still affording, still capable of enrolling you into state university. So you have a huge responsibility, therefore. Right? Maybe online, maybe in person, it doesn't matter. What matters is secure a higher GPA while understanding your responsibility as a responsible consumer, responsible university student, responsible youth, right? Responsible youth. Make sure that you do your all, right? To make the world a better place. Thank you.